Hey everyone, I'm Corey Cummins, the founder of Manly Combos. I created Manly Combos to destigmatize men expressing emotions, being vulnerable, and taking steps to work on their mental health. I wanted to do this by having open and honest conversations with men who have experienced the power of therapy and by talking with mental health professionals about specific topics which are impacting men. I hope that listening to our hour podcasts will help men take steps to improve their mental health. So
Okay.
yeah, I guess listen, obviously we've known each other for a long time, but there's a lot of people that are listening to this won't really know anything about you or who you are. So would you
Yeah.
mind just kind of introducing yourself and giving some background on who you are, where you're from, all that great stuff?
Yeah. Well, my name is Raul. I live in Mexico and I am 39 years old. We met while studying abroad in France and we've been friends for almost 2 decades. I live in San Luis Potosí. I am a travel agent. I've been doing this for a little while. I have other businesses, but currently Um, the most important thing I do right now is travel consultant.
Very nice, very nice. And so yeah, obviously I know that you and I have spoken about our journeys in mental health and therapy, and
Hmm.
obviously we had different reasons why we decided to do it, but um, it'd be great to understand a little bit more about kind of your background, and I guess really what made you decide to want to go to therapy. So it'd be good to kind of understand a little bit about you know what made you get to there, and what was your journey to get there.
Well, I could say it started more than 30 years ago. Um, Both my parents had issues between each other. They ended up getting a divorce, and I remember they taking me to a family therapist, and I was in denial on what was going on by that time. I was 8 or 9 years old. I didn't know how therapy worked, didn't know what should I feel by that time, or how to manage my emotions by watching my parents separate and throughout all the process. Um, After, I don't know, maybe a few sessions, I started to realize that even though someone I was telling someone personal stuff, someone I didn't know. So it kind of, I kind of got into a place I thought it was safe for me. So I started kind of believing in it. After that, uh, I have been going to therapy for many years. I've been on and off for some years. The last time I had therapy was maybe a year ago. Uh, it was about couples therapy, which I thought it worked for me, for my feelings, for my emotions. Yeah, I truly believe that it works. I believe that it's intended to help you, and I believe it to my core.
No, it's thanks for sharing. So you said obviously the first time you went. How old were you in the first time you went? You said.
Maybe 8 or 10 years old. I was very young.
Wow. And how did you, what was that like going at such a young age? Like, was it something, cause was it something that you went to that you were really open about experiencing and learning? Or is it something that your parents really wanted you to go to and then you end up kind of opening up to it?
No, no, no. I did believe in therapy but by that time, it was kind of they taking me without me wanting to. Uh, After a few sessions, I realized that I gave myself to the process, so I believed that it could work. Um, After that, I think I've I've been convinced that this works, and it's been hard. Many it was hard by that time. Uh, going through that process with your parents getting a divorce. But in the end, I went through the process, and it helped me on handling the mixed emotions and some feelings that I never felt before.
If you don't mind me asking, what were those feelings that you never felt before?
Loneliness, despair, like the depression. It's something that you don't realize it could happen to you by the age of 8 or 10 years old. It was kind of something unexplored for me by that time. You are so vulnerable, and you don't know what to hope for. You don't know how to express yourself. Yeah, I truly believe it works.
I think age is not a determinant. I think a lot of people, even older, struggle to know how to express themselves. So I can only imagine as an 8-year-old, what was that? And how long for the first time you went to therapy? How long did you go for when you were 8 years old?
Maybe for I don't know, maybe a year or two,
Okay.
and I stopped going to therapy during that process, and I came back when I was, I don't know, maybe 15, I guess.
Was that when you
I
went when you were
guess
15? Was that again from your parents, or is that something you were like, actually, I need to go to therapy?
both things.
Okay.
My parents suggested that, and it was my own decision, of course. You are more independent when you're 15, and you seek for help outside your house or outside home. And I went to therapy maybe for 3 or 4 years, and then I stopped doing it, and it really helped.
Why did you go when you were 15? What was the reason for you to go back again?
Well, that's when you truly realize that your dad is not around, and
Mm.
that you don't have someone as a since, well, okay, I lived with both my sisters and my mom, and you kind of need a father figure around. You need a man figure. So I kind of needed the guidance because I didn't know what to think about. Then they Pilar, that's her name. Pilar uh, took me through the process, and it really helped. And I think it took not more than three years, I believe, if I remember correctly.
And were you going every week or a couple times a month, or what
No,
was
I
that?
was I was every time I go to it, it was every once a week, not more than that. I've never been more than that. I remember her suggesting uh, going through a psychiatrist prescribing some antidepressants, and I don't think they worked much.
Hmm.
It was about more about looking for your emotions, and allowing me to explore these things. But it really helped, to be honest.
And when you're saying that you were looking for guidance from a man, I guess what is it that you were trying to find guidance in exactly that you felt like you were
Well,
missing?
well, of course, you need a father figure. So my father was not around. He lived like very, very far from San Luis. So I've always had a good relationship with my father. Um, I've always been around his orbit, and it's you need a dad. I mean, the statistics are there, and of course you need someone to tell you in a man way different than your mother or your sisters. So yeah, it was something missing for me. So that's why I wanted to go to therapy.
When I was that age, I don't even think well, actually, I wouldn't have known what therapy was at that time. So it's commendable
Yeah.
for you that you at 15 were emotionally intelligent enough to say, I need to go seek help. Man, I didn't go to therapy until I was 25, and that was because my mom passed. And
Yeah.
I can't take full credit for that. My girlfriend at the time was pretty much begged me for 2 years to go, and then I kind of
Hmm.
realized one day I was like, maybe I should go seek help. But I was 25, so yeah, I don't
Yeah.
even know. Actually, if my mother passed, I don't know if I would have gone to therapy for a long time. And I definitely something that I think everybody can use. But you said you went when you were 15 for a couple of years. When was the next time you went? Was it the relationship counseling, or was there some time in between that?
I think I went back to therapy when I was 20. I was I was going through college and I man, there's always something new to 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 feel or to explore, and that's why you feel um, that you need the guidance for the things that you don't know that are happening to you at the moment. So that time I remember going through therapy because that's when I realized that I cannot expect that you can't have extreme high hopes for the people surrounding you because you are going to get I mean I don't know what's the word in English, but
Disappointed?
yeah, disappointment. There's a lot of disappointment if you have high hopes, and the therapist helped me a lot with that. And of course, I do believe in therapy and I believe that it works, but sometimes it didn't work for me. I've seen a couple therapists after that, and I don't think they worked on the way that I was hoping.
Hmm.
It depends on the guidance they take you or they show you, but that therapist that took me through high school and uni, I think it worked really well, actually.
So two questions. There's two things you said that were really, that I wanted to dig in a little bit here. You said that, you wanted to go to therapy because you didn't, want to have high hopes and have disappointment. Was that
Yeah.
with all types of relationships? So friendships and romantic ones, or is that really just around, one type of relationship?
No, it was mostly about daddy issues. Um,
Okay.
yeah, no, it was about him.
Got it.
Uh, yes, I felt alone. I felt yeah, something was missing there.
And how did therapy help you with that? Was it just about being able to give you the tools to cope with that, or giving you the tools to be able to go communicate with him in a better way or rebuild your relationship? So how did it actually help you work through that?
Well, it depends on the therapist, but it's always a process you have to go through. The- it's different every time. Um, this therapist, and I think it's for every therapist out there, but they don't tell you what to do. Um, every time I've been through therapy, they always show you how you should deal with that. It's not that they're going to tell you specific points on what to do or what not to do,
Sure.
but in the end, you have to you have to explore yourself on your feelings and the possibilities around you, and you work from that. And man, sometimes it took really long to go through a process in that nature. After college, I think I resolved many of the problems I had with my dad. And of course, man, life gives you or takes you to places and sometimes you have to trust the process. It's not a quick process. It's not something that with maybe two or three sessions and you're done. And it doesn't work like that. At least for me, at least for the things that I've been through. Yeah, it's a process. But you have to give in. You have to um, give yourself to that and believe that it works. Because if you go in there without believing in it, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. You have to surrender yourself.
Yeah, it's funny. There's two things that I wrote down that I thought were really interesting. I've convinced a lot of friends to go to therapy, and because obviously it's something I believe in. I think it's something that has a lot of efficacy. But I've had, some friends who will go to 3 or 4 sessions. Are like, oh, I got what I needed out of this. I'm good. And
Hmm.
I'm like, and I always kind of say to them, I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I was like, so if you were to go to the gym for 3 or 4 times and you'd never been to the gym before, I'm like, you think that that would get you to where you want to be? And they're like,
Uh-huh.
no. And I go, so why do you think that therapy is any different? I go, actually, your brain is way harder to work through and to understand and to process than
Yeah.
going to the gym. But to two things that I thought were interesting. So you said the first thing was you were talking about how it didn't work a couple of times.
Uh-huh.
So why do you think it didn't work? Like, what do you think the reason was for that?
Well, maybe the circumstances were so that it wouldn't work. Of course, I've been to therapy for other reasons than my dad. Um, I've been to therapy because of a girlfriend I had. She was giving me a lot of a lot of problems, so I needed to I needed help so I could handle that. And I don't think it worked. Finally, of course, what your family could guide you and your friends the way they tell you, not what you want to hear, but the truth on what's their point of view outside of the problem, and that kind of helped me more rather than therapy, but only for specific things.
What were those specific things?
Well, no, like I said, the process that I was under circumstances by then, it wouldn't work because I didn't I wasn't 100% into that into that uh, sorry.
It's okay.
So yeah, I think it didn't work because of what I was going through, or not because of the therapist. It just didn't work that time.
That makes sense. And you also said before, which I thought was interesting, which I wrote down. You said, you went through this process, and sometimes the process takes longer or shorter. Something that people always talk about or ask me, like, how do you know when you're better or when you're going to get through this? There's
Hmm.
obviously there's no perfect answer to that, but like, how is
Hmm.
there anything that you can tell or think that you're like, okay, actually, I feel like I'm on the other side of this, and actually I can stop therapy?
Every time I went, I went to therapy, I wanted to, as I called it, to graduate from therapy, right?
All right.
So I was kind of expecting sometimes that my therapist would come to me and say, "Hey, you're fine by now. We shouldn't do this anymore." Um, and never happened. Many of the times I just felt not going anymore. I It's not that I lost interest in the therapy, but I thought, man, I'm not going anywhere. I need to stop. I think I feel better, and emotionally, I was in a good place. So yes, uh, there's not, for me at least, there wasn't a time that the therapist said we are going to therapy. Maybe once or twice, but till this date, it never happened. It's not like that. No.
Yeah, I remember the first time I went to therapy after my mom passed, and I still remember I was not fully bought into therapy when I went, and I still
Yeah.
remember the first time I went, I was like, "How long until I get over this?" and and the therapist laughed, and he's like, if I had that answer, he's like, I'd be a rich man,
Oh
and
yeah. Yes.
and but I remember him saying to me, he's like, you'll know. He goes, you'll feel. He's like, you'll start to feel in a different way. And he goes, the things that you
Yeah.
feel sad or anxious about, he goes, you won't have that weight that you feel, and that anxiousness you feel from everything, regarding your
Yeah.
mother. And yeah, I still remember just kind of, we kind of like faded out. Like we did it
Yeah.
for 18 months. And then over time I was like, okay, yeah, I was like, actually, I feel like I have the tools to conquer this on a day-to-day basis. And that's kind of when it happened. But, and obviously it's different for everybody,
Hmm.
but so you went, you said for when you were, if I remember the age brackets, you went in your, when you were 20, and then when was the next time you went after that?
I can't remember that much. Um, because it comes and goes. After college, I went to therapy to see. It's not that me having a relapse on
Yeah. Yeah.
on my feelings or anything, but there's a time that when you feel that you don't need it anymore, and suddenly it hits you. You feel kind of lost, and that's when many of the times I decided to go back. It's just that they don't tell you what to do. They just show you the tools, and sometimes you kind of feel lost, or you don't have any other tools to work with,
Mm.
and that's why I just come and go. It's a process. It's a process. Like you said, when to kind of stop. But that's when you feel. And sometimes I've been mistaken, of course. Sometimes I felt that I didn't need it anymore, but in fact, that's when I kind of needed the most. Maybe it depends on what's going on by that time in your life, and how you deal with it.
Yeah,
Or yeah,
no,
yeah.
I completely agree with that. I recently started going again, and for me, the reasons why I might have gone or not gone, like usually, like if I say I broke up with a really serious girlfriend, which I don't get into deep serious relationships all the time, but usually
Hmm.
after that, I'm like, okay, I should go speak to a therapist because just to make sure that I like process this and hopefully don't bring in the as I say the baggage from that relationship into
Hmm.
another one. Or the other times I've done it is business was really stressful. Like when I had my business, there's a lot of stresses involved, and I saw
Yeah.
it kind of spilling into my personal life. And then now has been the same thing. And there was like partly personal things where I was like, oh, what do I want? What do I want in a partner? And
Uh-huh.
I was like, didn't know if I was confusing things because of things that were around me that I was seeing within friends that were dating, where I was like, oh, I don't know if I want that. I do want that. And
Yeah.
then the other thing was I saw like the stress of work spilling into my personal life, and I was like, well,
Yeah.
that's not healthy. So I'm going to go back to a therapist. Have you always have you always had the same therapist? Well, actually, no, you said you have different ones,
No,
but have you
no,
every
I
time
have
do you do a
different.
different one?
No, I stayed with the same with Pilar for, I don't know, maybe 8 to 10 years.
Okay.
After that, I thought that my situation was different than, because it's not always been about my dad. It's not always been daddy issues. It's been I've been through many things, and well, it's been my dad, or a girlfriend, or work, or even I have I am into sports, and I also went to therapy for that. Um, Recently, or last year, I went to therapy for couples therapy, and and I kind of was recommended. Someone recommended another therapist that specializes in those topics. So that's why that I've changed. The Pilar was my therapist for 10 years, and she was specialized in in juveniles, or people,
Adolescence.
or adolescents. Uh-huh. So that's why I changed. And I felt comfortable with some. I felt uncomfortable with some. Uh, but but man, you have to open yourself since day one, because if you
Mm.
don't, the process is going to be harder and longer. That's what I've learned, and they've something that I am very appreciate this is because they, I don't know what's the term, but mentally, or emotion intelligence, emotional,
Hmm.
I don't know how to call it, but they kind of teach you to handle that, and that's when even with that different things are happening to you, you know how to handle them.
Yeah, no, I agree. I've had different therapists. My first therapist was this. I got introduced to him through a kind of like a friend of a friend, and he was great. He was older and had a lot of knowledge. Really helped me. And then I had a different therapist, and then I ended up finding out. Actually, I went to like call him to thank him for everything. Like 6, 7 years later, on the anniversary of my mother's passing, and
Huh.
he passed away, and he was old when he was helping me, but it's
Yeah.
funny how things come full circle, because the things that he taught me on were how to handle grief, and
Uh-huh.
it was interesting. It was almost like a weird coming of full circle, where like the man who taught me how to handle grief passed, and
Yeah.
I called him to thank him. But yeah, right now I'm trying a new therapist because I just want to try like a different form of therapy, and also I think sometimes, like anything, sometimes maybe it's good to have someone new who can push your boundaries in a different way.
Hmm.
But how would you, I guess, recommend to people to go and find help? 'Cause it's something that a lot of people ask. It can be quite difficult. How do you find help in or a professional in Mexico?
How do you, yeah, you can always get recommended.
Hmm.
That's the first thing. Man, you can go through the yellow pages and and seek for help. But no, no, I believe in the people that love you, tell you who they think they're good, and it doesn't matter who you go see. You have to, or you need to, help yourself and surrender to that therapy, and it will help you most of the times, I think.
And what is I guess for men in Mexico, what is the mental health look like? Do most men seek help? Is it still a taboo to go to therapy? Like, what is it like in Mexico?
Not many people believe in the process in Mexico.
Hmm.
We are maybe a too proud society, and but in the end, if you believe in yourself, if you believe that even someone who doesn't know you could help you, um, you are going forward. You are advancing on the thing that you have to resolve. Um, in Mexico, it's most of the therapists are women, not more, not a lot of men are into this, and that tells you something. It's like a macho thing, right? Um, yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman want to get better.
Yeah, yeah. And are you do your friends know that you go to therapy, and are you open with them about it? And like, if so, like,
Yeah,
how do they react to it, or what do they think when you tell them that you go to get therapy?
it's a normal thing for me to say if I am
Yeah.
going to therapy, I am comfortable sharing that. I don't have problems if people know that I've been to therapy for many years, or if I'm going at the moment. Doesn't matter.
And how do they respond to it? Like, what do they think about it? Like, what do you think when you talk to them about it?
Well, most of the people tell you what you want to hear. Um, so if you tell someone that you're going to therapy, they just tell you that yeah, it's going to help you. You're going to get better, good for you, or just that. It's not more than that.
Yeah, and you don't have any issues being kind of open about your feelings and what's going on. Like, people are still kind of look at you the same way and will still want to be your close
No,
friend and
no,
everything.
no. They therapy teaches you to share.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, it teaches you you have to know when to share, of course, or who to share it with. Um, but those are kind of the tools that teach you indirectly, maybe from going to therapy. It's something that you have to or you need to believe in. Yes.
Yeah, no, I've seen very similar things. I'm very open about it. Like, I'm
Hmm.
open about my mother passing. I'm open about
Yeah.
why I go to therapy, partly because I used to be the opposite before my mother passed. Like I wouldn't talk about emotions and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it made me realize that I need to be more open. One for my own sanity, but
Yeah.
also it's interesting how I've either made friends or people have gone to people that I didn't even know because I was really open about what I went through. That they would all of a sudden they would open up to me, and
Mm-hmm.
they would end up going to therapy. So I realized that like it's amazing what the like the power of being open and honest about what you're going through. Now, obviously, you don't need to be divulging everything to everybody. It's obviously you
Yeah.
need to understand who you're talking to. I still know people that know that I go and don't have any desire to go seek help.
Mm-hmm.
But, for me, I always like to be kind of very transparent about it because I know the impact it's had me, it's helped
Mm-hmm.
me. And it's funny, I'm not married or don't have kids or anything, but I've always joked around that if I ever got into another relationship, I'd probably start like relationship counseling in the beginning, like every month. So
Mm-hmm.
you have a person that can help you communicate and talk through things in a healthy manner. And my
Yeah.
friends are like, why would you do that? And I was like, well, I don't know. Think about it. You have two people who don't know each other. Well, know each other, but come from different backgrounds, different upbringings. Like it gives you a really safe place to be able to kind of communicate and get to know each other better. But yeah, I appreciate you kind of, be really open and honest about this because it's something that, unfortunately, a lot of men struggle to talk about emotions
Mm-hmm.
and be vulnerable and be open, and also really struggle to take that step to go, try to work on themselves because it can be
Mm-hmm.
quite a scary thing, especially if you haven't done it at like a young age. It can be quite a scary thing. Like I remember
Yeah.
thinking, like I had this vision in my head of what it is. I was like, oh, it's I'm going to be sitting on a couch, laying down, and it's going to be weird and uncomfortable.
No, no, it's not like that.
Yeah, and I still remember when I went, I was like, huh, this is a lot different than I thought it was going to be. And then I remember the first couple of sessions, I was like, nah, we're just having a like nothing really conversation. And then
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember exactly what he asked me. I wish I wrote it down, but I remember it was like the fourth or fifth session. He like asked me some question that I remember I walked outside and it really like provoked a response in my brain where I was
Mm-hmm.
like maybe he could help me and be onto something here.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
also I realized that for me I try to be really open about going to therapy and my feelings. If someone's going to judge me for it, then that's more on them than on me.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's something that I realize has a really strong impact for me. But I guess what do you think would, I guess, cause people or men, not people, but men in Mexico to really start kind of changing the attitude and the perception around this topic? Is there anything you think that could help kind of evolve it?
Well, I don't know the answer to that question, but I think that I mean, look at this way. Look at it this way. I've always thought, and we spoke about it a couple weeks ago, but I always think that emotions are like a teapot on the
Hmm.
on the stove, right? So if you don't let it out just a little bit, it's going to explode eventually, and that happens with 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 a person's feelings. If you don't let them out, if you don't share, if you don't, if you're not open about it, there are many signs, man. There are many negative things that could replace those feelings if you don't let them out. You have to have an exhaust um, thing. Did I explain myself?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I
Yeah.
uh, I saw that when battling with my mother for cancer.
Hmm.
Like I ended up the reason why I went. I still remember. I don't remember exactly what I said, but I remember kind of like lashing out at my girlfriend for no reason, and not like
Yeah.
being abusive or anything, but just kind of you know being yelling and like that was just so out of character for me. I'm just not someone who does
Hmm.
that. Like I'm very honest and very direct, but and I was like, oh. I go,
Hmm.
that's not normal. That's not normal behavior.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, well, one, I don't deserve that. Like I shouldn't be acting that way. And also the person that I love and all that stuff doesn't deserve that type of emotional reaction from me because
Hmm.
it's not their fault.
Yeah.
And but I agree with the teapot thing. That's why I kind of smile because it's a great way to kind of explain it. I think that's actually something that probably everyone can resonate with. Is
Hmm.
whether you're anxious or depressed or whatever you're going through, there's always a breaking point where
Yeah,
something's gonna happen. Whether that's to your friend or your loved one or family or whatever it is, you're gonna end up releasing it somehow. Or you
yeah,
don't do it to anybody, but you end up you drink
to
too
yourself.
much,
Yeah.
alcohol, that type of stuff. So yeah, there's always the things that can come from it. So yeah, but but I guess long term, I guess not thinking about or talking about therapy per se, because obviously it's had a strong impact on you. I guess in the next couple of years, if this was a chapter, I guess what do you think this chapter of your life would be? What are you hoping it to be?
Well, if I am completely honest, I am going through a divorce right now. So I think that I should see someone, even if you're doing okay, even if you feel okay. I think that you could see someone and get guidance because at some point you will feel lost. This is something new for me. This is something that I need to get done. I need to see someone and express myself. I need to I need to release the feelings I have. But like I said before, if you get to a point where you are not sure about whether going to therapy or not, uh, it's okay for that. What I think it's not okay if you don't surrender to that. Surrender to yourself, not to the therapist, but yourself. If you don't go in there, if you don't go to those sessions feeling open about it and being true to yourself, it's not going to work. You have to feel you have you need to go and trust the process. And it's a long process. It's not going to take 1 month or a year or 30 years, but it helps. It does help a lot.
Yeah, well, first off, thanks for sharing, Max. I know it's something that you're going through now, so I didn't know if you were going to talk about it. So I appreciate you talking about that because I know it's very fresh. So thanks for that.
Yeah.
Um, what would you say? What are you doing when you feel the most alive?
Alive?
Yeah, like what makes you just give you that passion and excitement of life?
Well, that those releases I have, of course, are sports and work. And sometimes when you go through a process of grief and pain, you kind of need to get yourself occupied, busy. Um, you need to think about yourself because that's the most important thing about your emotions. You have to be okay here because you live there. I don't know I'm explaining myself, but
That makes sense.
or here, you know. So it should be a nice place to live at.
Hmm.
Yeah,
And
it's
what are the sports that make you feel the most alive?
of course cycling and football.
So you still play so when you say cycling, what type of cycling do you do?
I do road cycling and mountain bike cycling.
Very nice, very nice. And so you go for really long cycles on the weekends.
Yeah, yeah. And that's one of the things that I hope for every day of the week. Um, that's the thing that keeps me focused and of course fit and yeah. But emotionally, that's a way to release. Maybe that's kind of the therapy that someone needs, and it works for me.
Is that why you look like a 39-year-old Mexican George Clooney? All that cycling.
Well, I wouldn't say that, but
Listen, I really appreciate you kind of being on today and also just giving us your experience. I know it's not something that's easy for everyone to talk about, and also
yeah,
giving your honest kind of life experience to people. I think this will have a huge benefit. So yeah, I really
mhm.
appreciate you coming on, and yeah, hopefully we can maybe do another one of these later after you kind of go through your next experience.
Yes, yeah, of course, I'm glad to help. And if you're listening out there, just surrender yourself to the process.
Great. Thanks, Raul.
No problem. Thank you.